very makbid to brush the crumbs off their plate. So it was necessary to me, what's the pshat? Why are they so makbid on making sure that there's no crumbs on their plate when the challah comes out? So we'll discuss, is this a shayla of a diaraisa, it's a shayla derabanan, it's a chumrah, or is it's mutter, it's 100% mutter. These are the shayla that I would like to discuss. But in order to understand the shayla, we have to have a little bit of familiarity with bishul, with hilchas bishul. So let's start with the beginning of Shin Ches, Sif Daled. The halacha is bishul achar bishul is mutter by davar yavish, meaning that if you have something that's cooked, let's say like a piece of chicken, a piece of meat, you cook it 100%. So once, even if it cools down, you midir raisa mikra din. If you were to put it back into the oven or put it onto fire, it would not be a problem. There's an iser derabanan of chazara or nesina l'chatchila, and therefore you can't do that. But to put into a kli rishon, that would be mutter and so on. Now, that's by a davar yavish. What's the halacha by a davar lach? Bishul achar bishul b'davar lach. So that means, again, let's use water for example. You have water that you cooked, let's say, and then it cools down, and now you want to recook it on Shabbos. What's the halacha? So this is a machlokes rishonim. The Rosh in Parak Aleph, Parak Yud Gimel brings Shitas Rashi, and Rabbeinu Yaina in Bab Basra, they're of the opinion that bishul achar bishul b'davar lach is aser midiraisa. Therefore, if a person were to cook, let's say, water to a boiling point, and then it were to cool down, and on Shabbos he would want to recook it, it would be aser midiraisa. Now, it's a machlokes rishonim, like we said. So the Beis Yosef brings down the Shitas Rambam, Ran, Rashba, that say that bishul achar bishul b'davar lach is mutter. Now, how do we paskin? We paskin the Shulchan Aruch we paskin the chumrah. That means that we paskin the bishul achar bishul b'davar lach is aser. Now, it's important to speak out that it seems to be that it's a chumrah. We'll discuss that in a second. Now, what is the machlokes in this shitas rishonim? What's the pshat that you would hold yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach, and what's the tzad to say in bishul achar bishul b'davar lach? So, according to the rishonim that say yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach, again, that's the Rosh that brings down shitas Rashi, and that's Rabbeinu Yaina. So the reason being is because once you cook water, it's very nice that now you cooked it, but nothing was. It's not nicker than anything was nishtana. And the whole shame bishul that applies, let's say, by a liquid, is with that which it's hot. So now it cooled down. It's mevatel the shame bishul that it had. So therefore, it would be usher to recook it. As opposed to other rishonim, they say that no, something was nishtana, and therefore, even if you were to recook it, it's very nice that it cooled down, but now you could recook it, it's not a problem. It happens to be, I saw that in the Paiskim they bring down that when you recook water that was previously cooked, it boils a lot quicker. And someone told me that if you were to freeze like water that was previously cooked, it's clear ice cubes. Something's the shtana in the water. And that's the shita of those rishonim that hold in bishul achar bishul b'davar lach. Fine. So like we said, Shin Yud Ches Sif Daled, we paskin yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach. Now, there's a machlokes Mechaber and Ramah in a specific scenario. Imagine a person boils up water, and now it cools off. Now it cools off below Yad Tzeledes Bay. So it's hot, but it's not Yad Tzeledes Bay. So nowadays, I'm saying on Shabbos you can't measure the heat. So I saw a svar from the Paiskim that from Moshe Heinemann that leaving your finger in the water for 15 seconds. If you can leave it in there, then it's not Yad Tzeledes Bay. If you can't, then that would be considered Yad Tzeledes Bay. Akapanim, so according to the Mechaber, if it's below Yad Tzeledes Bay and you want to recook it, it's aser. It's aser to do that. As opposed to the Ramah, if it's nitztanen, it cools off, but it doesn't cool off completely, you could recook it. Now, what's the pshat in the Ramah? Meaning, mimanav shach. If we're going with the shita of yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach, so now it cooled off. So now that it's cool, and it's not Yad Tzeledes Bay, why is there no Isser Bishul? That's the Shaila. Happens to be, B'derech Agav, I saw that the Pri Megadim has a Shaila, according to Ramah, if it's the Tzanan Legamri, it completely cools off, like to the point where it's mamish cold, would it be Asim Midiraisa, according to Ramah? In other words, is he just Mekel? Is he just being machmer on like the shitas of Yesh Bishul Achar Bishul B'davar lach, or he holds that Meker Adin? And for some reason he holds that if it's not Tzanan Legamri, that's not as far. So I saw from the Chazon Ish, he says Taka that the Ramah is being machmer, but Avad Me'ikra then he's going like the opinion of Ein B'Shalach B'Shalach B'Davalach. But he's being machmer like the shittas of Yesh B'Shalach B'Shalach B'Davalach. Now, that being said, what's the pshat in the Ramah? So I saw a murder gesvar from Shmorabach in Archa Shabbos, and he says like this: Avivel the whole entire Isser of Bishul, according to these Rishonim, if you say Yesh B'Shalach B'Shalach B'Davalach, is with that which it's boiling. In other words, it only has a Shem Bishul with that which it's hot. So now they're cooled off to less than Yad Saladas Boy. But if it's Chamimusa and Nikeres, that's the Lashon of the Chazon Ish, Zakrib Shmuel, so when you boil it up more, so it's not Nicker that you did anything to the water. It's a murder gesvar. I thought it was such a geshmak gesvar. He's saying that the whole entire Isser, according to these Rishonim, of Yesh B'Shach B'Davalach, is only with that which it's boiling. That's where you get the Shem Bishul. So if it's not Nitzdan on the Gamri, it's still warm, so Zakter, so then you don't have a Shem Bishul because it's not Nicker that you did anything to the water. Al Kapanim, that's the Machoikis, Mechaber, and Shul and Rambo. Now, what is Lach? So the Paiskim are not magder what's lach. So it happens to be at the schos of learning with a few chevra on Wednesday nights. So someone wanted to find an interesting svara. That maybe there's a svara to say what lach is, and before we say that, I want to give a shikha hakdama. The Reb Shlomo Zalman, yeah, and Rabbi Yashiv, it's brought down Bishmo that they both said that ketchup has a status of a davar yavish. Now, Moshe says that ketchup is mesupik about ketchup, if it's a davar yavish or it's a davar lach. I hear. Okay, fine. So there's a shaila of how you view ketchup. Now, so someone wanted to taina, he was a murder gesvar he was taining. He was saying that maybe there's a svar to say that we'd only see lach as much as when you pour it onto a plate, it spreads out. As opposed to if you come onto a plate, it looks liquidy as something like ketchup, but unless it stays in one spot. So maybe I thought there was a geshmak gesvar. I don't know. Al Kapanim, the Mefarshim, the Paiskim don't say what exactly is considered lach. So we have to know every single thing would have its own shaila. Al Kapanim, that's Yesh B'Shalach B'Shalach B'Davar Yavish, and that's Yesh B'Shalach B'Shalach B'Davar Lach. Now, we have to handle what's the halacha of B'Shalach B'Shalach by tzli and B'Shalach B'Shalach by afiyah, because we're coming back to our original shaila. We have to come back to the chalent on the plate. So, what is this halacha? So there's a machlokes rishonim. There's the B'Seisif and Shin Yud Ches Hey brings down Shitas Rav Yah and the Yereim. And the Torah brings down the Shitas of Yereim. So what's the Machlokes? The Machlokes is like this. I have something that got cooked, and now I want to roast it, or I want to bake it, right? Or that is the way the Torah brings down these Shitas. Happens to be the Mishabura says it can go both ways. Meaning if it was baked and then I want to cook it, or they're interchangeable. But it happens if you're medayik in the lashon of the Torah, he says if it was something that was cooked and then you baked. Al Kapanim, the shaila is that if you say yish b'shal achar afiyah or yish b'shal achar tzli, yes or no. So the shita of the Rav Yah is that we don't. Why? Because something became edible. It's roi for achila. So now it's ready to be eaten. So now it happens to be you instilled another cooking process into it, but nothing changed because it was ready to be eaten before, and it's ready to be eaten now. Nothing changed. As opposed to Yereim, he says no. It's very nice that you had this piece of food, this piece of meat that was ready to be eaten before. But the bottom line is, if it was cooked and now you put it, let's say, on the grill, it changes the flavor. It instills in it a new flavor. That being said, he says that we were paskin that yish b'shal achar afiyah is aser mid'oraisa. So now, how do we paskin? So weiter, the Mechaber brings down in Shin Yud Ches Hey both days. He brings down both from the Rav Yah and both from the Yereim, and Ramah says we're noig to be machmer. Now, so we paskin lahachmer on yesh b'shal achar afiyah. That being said, what would be if a person were to take, let's say, his saucy meat and put it on top? What?
What do Sfardim do?
I don't know. I'm not a Sfardi, but the Mechaber does bring down both shitas. That's all I can tell you. I'm a chroi for what I do in my house. I can tell you that the Ramah says we're not to be machmer. So, you're not Sephardi, are you? Listen, you're worried about other pieces of your shemaim. It's gewaldig. I'm going to ask you for a bracha. So like this. So Lamaisa, that's the way you paskin. So what would be if you take this saucy meat, now you put it on top of a challah, right? On top of the crackpot. You have a hefsek kedera without getting involved in those shilas, but Al Kapanim, if you put it on top, so that's a different type of cooking. So the Chazon Ish says a svara to be mekel. He says because by putting in such a scenario, it's not going to instill it with the flavor of roasting or baking and so on. It'll still stay a cooked item. Therefore, it's mutter. It's nothing to be worried about. Okay. Gewaldig. So that's the Shiloh by Yesh Bishal Achar Afiyah and Yesh Bishal Achar Bishal Yesh B'Davalach. Okay. So Lamaisa, let us handle the next Shiloh. Kli Rishon and Kli Sheni. Because in order for us to properly understand what's going on over here, by the case of the Chalent, we have to know a little bit about Kli Rishon and Kli Sheni. So the Mishnah on Daf Mem Beis and Shabbos says that a Kli Rishon has a koyach to be mavashal. A Kli Rishon could go and cook something. Now, what about a Kli Sheni? So a Kli Sheni cannot be mavashal, does not have a koyach to be mavashal. Frek Taisvis, everyone knows the Rishonim asked the kasha. What's the difference between a Kli Rishon and a Kli Sheni? I don't understand. If a Kli Rishon is a chveis, let's say it's boiling hot, you pour it into a Kli Sheni, and it's still boiling hot in a Kli Sheni, so it also has a koyach to be mavashal. What's the chiluk? So Taisus famously says that since it's not in the walls of the pot that they were cooked in, therefore it begins to cool off, and therefore it doesn't have a koyach to be mavashal. That's what Taisus says. Now it's actually interesting that I was handling with the Olam last night in Evan Isles. We were handling about a thermos, putting it into a thermos. What's the status of a thermos? So one of the chevra put it at 6:58 in the morning. He sent me a picture. He boiled up water and poured it into a thermos, and he brought it to the shira at 8:30. It was boiling hot, not stop. And the poskim say that it has the status of a Kli Sheni because you have Taisus Svar. So you have to be magder what exactly Taisus Svar is and how to be magder, especially with a thermos. Al Kapanim, it's interesting to know that the poskim Shlomo Zalman, he says that by a thermos it has the status of a Kli Sheni. I think Rabbi Aaron also says such a svara that that a thermos has the status of a Kli Sheni. Al Kapanim, that's Taisus. So Lamaisa, it's interesting. Once we're on this topic, Rashi on the Mishnah says something very interesting. He says that a Kli Rishon can only be mavashal ba'eder eseach. So I gotta have this diak. What's the var? Why doesn't he say while it's a yad salez by? All the places can say a lashon yad salez by, right? If you look in the Rambam, also uses such a lashon, like while it's boiling. So I was very excited. I saw that in Orcha Shabbos on the bottom, they being from Shmuel, he had this diak, and he wanted to say a big var. He wanted to say that a Kli Rishon, what's the pshat that a Kli Rishon is mavashal? What's the pshat? Meaning, Kli Rishon is mavashal, Kli Sheni is not mavashal. So Taisus says as far because the walls don't cool off. He says like this, is that if you're medayik in Rashi and in the Rambam, that the only time a Kli Rishon can be mavashal is while it's boiling. So he says that the koyach of a Kli Rishon being mavashal is as if it's on the fire. So it's a gishmak savar. So once it goes into a Kli Sheni, it's very nice to yad saladis by, but you lost the whole iser of bishul, because the whole uptight of a Kli Rishon being mavashal, because we view it that, so to speak, it's on a fire. Why? So therefore, it's only goes on it's boiling. The second it goes into a Kli Sheni, it loses that status. Fine.
The thermos would be mutter.
Maybe according to that, yeah, there would be a svar for the thermos, yeah, but that's not going. That's a little bit different than Taisus.
That's what the reason why Kli Sheni is mutter.
Right. I mean, well, he was saying that's Pshat and Rashi in the Rambam. Okay, fine. Other Rambam. She's saying Pshat and Taisus. Fine. Other Rambam. Al Kapanim. So that's what did you say? I mean, you can be fine. Taisus is. Yeah. He says different nusach. I'm saying okay. Al Kapanim. Yeah, that could be a Pshat and Taisus. Al Kapanim. So we established that a Kli Rishon can be a vashal, maker adin. A Kli Sheni is not mevashal, maker adin. Now, when it comes to Kaliyah Bishul, Midiraisa, a Kli Sheni could be mavashal. So therefore, we have to know what's the status of these breadcrumbs. Okay, we're going to come back to the shaila at some point, hopefully. So the shaila is like this: you have these breadcrumbs. What's the status? So the Tur says that according to the Sefer Yereim, if a person should be careful not to put breadcrumbs into a Kli Sheni. Meaning, let's say a person were to take his crock pot and pour from the crock pot into a bowl, not using a ladle. So the crock pot is a Kli Rishon, the bowl is a Kli Sheni, and in the bowl there's breadcrumbs. There's a chashash for Issa D'Oraisa. Okay? What did you say? No, that would also not be. That would also, according to Mishnah Brura, he says it goes both ways. Okay? So Lamaisa, that would. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kli Sheni. Yeah, very good. Yeah, and Shuldik, you're right. That's right. Correct. that's for sure gonna be a problem. So now you put it on. Let's say, for example, you put it on. How about this? You put it onto a plate. The breadcrumbs are on one side. Gets onto the plate, rolls over, and hits the breadcrumbs. Honestly, that's what I was imagining, but I spoke out of bull. Fine, very good. So that would be a chash of an issa d'oraisa. Now, what about a ladle? You use the ladle in between. So the shaila is, how do we view a ladle? Do we view a ladle as a kli rishon and a kli sheni? So mishabru in one place sounds like we view it as a kli rishon, and in one place it sounds like we view it as a kli sheni. The Meister mishabru says b'negei tziruf. Over here, it's a chumrah of bishul achar afiyah is a chumrah. To dan the kaf, the ladle, as a kli rishon would also be a chumrah. So therefore, b'negei this shaila of let's say taking from a crackpot. You have a crackpot's your kli rishon. Your ladle would dan as your kli sheni. Now pouring it onto the plate would be, by the time it gets to the plate, it's a kli shlishi. So therefore, that would be mutter. That's what the mishabura says. Now, we're going to get there. Givaldik. So now, 1 second. So before we get to davar gush, this that the mishabura says that a kli shlishi is mutter by kali abishal itself is subject for a dispute, because the Chazon Ish says that we're choishish even by, there's no chiluk between a kli sheni and a kli shlishi by kali bishul. But he says there is one thing that we're mechalak between a kli sheni and a kli shlishi by kali bishul, and that is, but we only are choishish for things that the Gemara speaks out are kali bishul by a kli shlishi. Therefore, the Gemara doesn't speak that out. We wouldn't be choishish for that. But if you look in the Yereim, he says that we're not mechalak between a kli sheni and a kli shlishi, if it's yad saledis by. The Yereim is also the opinion, the Manda Amar, that holds that yesh b'shal achar afiyah is issa d'oraisa. So now, leaving davar gush aside, without getting involved in davar gush, and we hope that we're going to get to that in a second, there's a real chash to be for issa d'oraisa. Now, that being said, we started off the shir with a shaila, that when people brush their breadcrumbs off, is that a d'oraisa, a derabanan, a chumrah, or mutter? Okay. So according to the Mishnah Brura, it should be a chumrah, because he says you can don the kaf, the ladle, as a kli sheni. By the time it gets to your plate, it's a kli shlishi. You have nothing to be worried about. But according to the Yereim, who were chayshish for that opinion, b'negei bishal achar afiyah, he also happens to be the one who says that we're not mechalak between a kli sheni and a kli shlishi b'negei kali bishal. So if you're chayshish for the Yereim halfway, maybe we're chayshish for the Yereim all the way. So this was a shiloh that I handled with about 5 different rabbanim this past week. 3 of them told me that we can't stand be choishish for shitas l'rishayim, and a few of them told me that no, it's a good svara because the Ma'aseh Yereim says it, and the Ma'aseh the Torah is reckoning with the sheet of the Yereim. So maybe that's a tzad. My shiloh was, what's the pshat machmirim? This is a real tzad to be choishish for a chumrah. It's a chumrah d'oraisa. It's a shiloh of a d'oraisa according to Yereim. I just got off the phone from someone from Lakewood. Some Rabbi Haberfeld, the Imam was just learning the sugyas of Bishul, and he's a pesach for the Beis Hara. He said, no, and Echanami, for the Yereim, it's a real tzad. Now, also, it's very interesting, if you're Medayik in the Mishnah Brura, he says that we're not choishish for Kali HaBishul in a Kli Shlishi. But he doesn't, that's the way all the Heintek Pais can bring him down. If you look at all the Heintek Pais, they say, Mishnah Brura says, the Kli Shlishi is mutter. Now, if you look at the words of the Mishnah Brura, he says, Kli Shlishi mitzadet ha-primigadim b'sifkat lamed hey lahakol. That means that the Pri Megadim has a shiloh. If you look at the Pri Megadim inside, he's mitzadet. Whether there is a makom to be mechalek between a kli sheni and a kli shishi by kali bishul. So even the Mishnah Brura himself is mitzadet tzad to be machmer by a kli shishi for kali bishul, which would mean that there would be a real reason for a person to be afraid that if he has breadcrumbs on his plate, when shalom comes onto it, that there's a chash for an isser. According to Roiv Paiskim, there's a real shtaket tzad to be makel. Now, with regard to a davar gush, how do we pass him by a davar gush? So if you look in Aruch Chaim, we don't handle the Mechaber, the Ramah doesn't bring down davar gush. It's brought down in Yeridea, Simon Kofei, that we pass him that davar gush has a koich to be mevashal. Now, the Magen Avram in Sheni Ches brings down this opinion, and he said the Marshal who says that a davar gush has a koich to be mevashal. So how do we pass it? Maisa, if you dan cholent as a davar gush, so that means stays the status of a kli rishon. So even with all your tzirufim and whatever, however you're going to come about, by the time it comes to your plate, it's a kli rishon. So if it's a kli rishon, it has a koich to be mevashal. If it has a koich to be mevashal, then you have a vayter, we're back that there's a real tzad of a d'oraisa. That would be the shiloh. Now, that being said, there's still what to be mitzad, to be meko. Why? Because what's the koyach of a davar gush? What's that koyach to cook? Is that a koyach of bishul, or is that a koyach of tzli? Oh, so that's a gevaldig shayla. So if it's a thick chalent, so then according to most people, would be a davar gush. If it's a liquidy chalent, so this is a geshmak of maramakim. So the Piskei Tshuva in Yeridea says that if there's a liquid and there's a solid, and they're mixed together, so the liquid changes the status of the solid, and therefore you have taisus svara that the tefanis are makaris. The tefanis you don't have that taisus svara that the walls keep the heat. So therefore, by the time it gets to your plate, it's mutter. Meaning, if you have a liquid and a solid together, so it's like the Piskei Tshuva, it goes based off the liquid. So therefore, by the time it gets to your plate, it's klish.
Then the salad is dry.
It's very good. But if the liquid is there, it cools off the salad. That's the Piskei Tshuva saying.
You never have a davar gush then.
What do you mean? Of course you do.
Only if it's a thicker chalent.
Only if it's thicker chalent. Piece of potato kugel, something like that. Why? Okay, we'll have that afterwards. Okay, fine. So Lamaisa, that's the tzad of that would be a tzad to be. That would be the tzad to be mekel. So Lamaisa, if you're gonna say that it has a status of a davar gush, then what's it called? Okay, fine. But that's only if you dan chalent as a davar gush. Now, even if you dan chalent as a davar gush, so here's weiter shayla. What's the koyach of a davar gush? Is it koyach for bishul, or is it koyach for afia, or tzli? So if the koyach is for bishul, so then you have a shayla. Lamaisa, the koyach is not to be a vashal. The koyach of davar gush is either afia or tzli. And a tzli acher afia or afia acher tzli is a machlekes the Pri Megadim machzor the shekel which we're chayshish for, which up for another dispute, and therefore basically according to Roiva Paiskim, there is really nothing to be worried about with regard to your breadcrumbs. But there is a makom to be machmer l'chayra for this Yiraim and maybe for this Pri Megadim that the mechaber that Mishnah Berurah is telling to. Happens to be that I just time for Mara, but I had brought up a shayla about ice cream on top of cold ice cream on top of a hot piece of cake. What's the shayla? So for 10 seconds, I handled this with I spoke to 5 Rabbanim, I spoke to 3 Rabbanim about this. So Rav Harfines says it's aser, it's not a shayla. He said either it's going to be aser, it's bishul, or else it's moiled. Other Rabbanim I spoke to said it's not going to be a shayla of moiled, it's only going to be a shayla of bishul. And Rav, who I just spoke to from Lakewood, so I wanted to tell him a svara to be mekel. By in this case, I think he was masking to svara, but he said I shouldn't say it as a heter because then people will be. He was worried. So the heter is like this: is that there's a what's it called? So I'm not going to say b'teres heter. I'm going to say b'teres svara. There's an iglei tal in Malachas Oiva that in Sif Yud that says something very interesting. He says that when it comes to Paris, bishul on Paris, he says it's only aser midiraisa if you want the bishul and it makes it better. But if it makes it worse and you don't want it, well, he doesn't say you don't want it. That's the Pri Megadim. He says if it makes it worse, so then there's nothing to be worried about. So based on this svara from the Iglei Tal, I was telling him, so the Kumtachos is a real tzad that if the bishul is making a kilkel in the food that you're eating, so then there's a tzad to be mekel and say that's not possible.
So you want
If the cake is yatzaledes. So, but the bottom, yeah. So Lamaisa, so he wanted to say he heard the svara, but okay. You're being McCall for the ice cream. No, so that was the shayla. So he asked me if you wanted it like that. So I told him Pashas nobody wants liquid ice cream.
While it's melting, eating it together.
So then so then it's not so simple. If you want it like that. What do you mean?